Hello, 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 hello. Good morning and welcome to Feedback Friday, Art Edition. I'm your host, Jacob Johnson. Welcome to the art stream, everybody. How are you all doing? We're going to be doing a shorter stream today. I'm going to go until lunch break, and then I'm going to head out because I have some other stuff I need to do at the end of the day, as well as kind of meeting type things. But hello, Volatide. Welcome, Frank, Jason, Fun, Jonathan, Math. Hello to you all. Donovan, howdy. How's everyone doing this fine day, or eve, or morning, or wherever you are? Hello, hello. So today we're going to be doing a character from the ground up. So we're going to, well, not like the whole thing, but we're going to start with a sketch. So we're working on a new character for the area that we're kind of building currently. Um, and I have a couple of kind of character ideas that we could pick from. So I'll let you guys decide what you would like to explore with me. But yeah, we'll basically be working up a sketch today. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll be able to kind of like have you guys kind of share your ideas and help give some direction to this. Uh, can we please keep the Gouda string as official art? Uh, I believe it is plugged in to the system now. So until the day that we require it to be an actual item used, it is technically official. Um, we'll see if we decide to kind of like redo that. I think I actually would like to use that current design and just kind of modify that, like take it to a more polished level because it was just kind of like the initial kind of like workup of it, the linear, if you will. It isn't completely rendered yet, but it might still have the little top hat guy in it somehow. Um, yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, Stickman cheese. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So yeah, basically we have kind of a couple of characters we could pick from. Um, and so the area that we're working on deals a lot with like fables and kind of like folk stories or even like nursery rhymes and stuff like that. And it's kind of like very much built around kind of that narrative idea of kind of like stories that kind of like, you know, uh, get passed around and are kind of long standing and have a lot of kind of interesting, you know, history and stuff behind them. They travel kind of like, uh, around the world and kind of like change and stuff and kind of the mice kind of like getting involved in their own ways in these things. So characters that I'm going to be working on for kind of like this little section um, are I have a few to pick from, and we'll see what you guys think would be more interesting. There's obviously like a lot of characters and stuff from all kinds of stories, and we've kind of like created lists of ones that we would like to create. But today I'm gonna have us pick between doing a little Bo Peep character, um, which actually I think would be a lot of fun. Kind of like the like visual imagery of kind of like having that the shepherd's crook and kind of like a mouse looking for her lost herd, or a Pinocchio character, kind of basing it off of kind of the late 1800s story. Um, Although, of course, I think most of us are very familiar with kind of Disney's interpretation of it. But yeah, so I want to like choose between those two. So, do we want to create a little wooden boy mouse with a nose that can grow if he's stressed and or lying, or little Bo Peep character? Um, so like there's going to be a bunch of interesting characters. So I don't want to kind of like reveal too many of them, but it should be a lot of fun because we get to take our own kind of spin on all these things. And yeah, I think it'll be quite interesting to render. Yeah, like the hair and the turtle. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I got it. I got it chopped off. It was way too warm the other day. Had to actually turn on our AC unit in the apartment because southwest facing windows that are really big, um, it can get very toasty in here. Um, Clearly, it's not too bad a day because I'm currently wearing a sweater. But yeah, it just was an extremely hot day. So I was sick of my hair, and Alex knows how to do the haircuts, went to school for it and all that, and gave me a nice trim. So it was good. I think it looks nice. But yeah, do you consider power level and difficulty when designing the mouse? Yes, that is actually a factor in kind of like creating characters. Is a lot of the time we'll kind of like build a roster of these are kind of like more of the minion ones. These are like mini bosses. This one's the main boss. These ones are for farming. These are kind of like your pesky, annoying ones that you don't want to kind of like have run into your trap all the time, like stuff like that. And depending on what their gameplay role is, that can affect the overall design. So like you might purposefully design it to be a little weaker or like have more kind of a presence to be kind of like, you know, the kingpin of the area, or just kind of like, oh, they're more about kind of like gathering the resources from them, so they might kind of like purposefully be kind of themed with that concept. But it's usually less about kind of like the power level is in like a number and kind of like understanding like, oh, this mouse has 20,000 power versus 6,000 power. It's more just kind of like what is its main role, and even then, like if you have kind of like a low tier mouse, it doesn't always need to look weak and feeble and like you know totally useless, right? That's not as interesting always if like they just look kind of like like uh, I think it's more interesting to kind of have like, oh, I like that character. It's very exciting and interesting. But when I compare these two, like I compare like a tier one mouse, and that's often how I'll talk with other designers about it, is like, oh, tier one or collector mice or mini boss and such. When you kind of like put them together and compare them that way, then there is kind of like that distinction of kind of, yeah, like, ooh, that one feels more kind of like in charge kind of thing. And sometimes we'll do things like doing a landscape format to kind of like give it more of kind of like a special kind of this is a special character. Um, but yeah, so I would say that absolutely factors in, as well as kind of like the power types and stuff like that as well. Like that's often a pretty huge indicator of the designs. Um, did we ever have a pterodactyl mouse? I don't think we've had a pterodactyl. No. We've done flying mice, plenty of flying mice, and we've had kind of like dinosaur-ish, but specifically a pterodactyl, I do not believe we've done one. No. Yeah, yeah. Alex's Discord is blown up. Queso geyser. That's interesting. The queso geyser quest takes too much time. That is kind of like post-morteming, like looking back on that design. Um, we've kind of like looked at the flow of it. Not that it would change anything, or not that we would change anything currently, but it's more like learning from that design going forward. Is the actual uh, pressure building phase doesn't feel as kind of like uh, an exciting, fun, interesting moment as kind of like other parts where it's like, ooh, I'm making, I'm building up progress on making this cheese I'm really interested in, and kind of like generating that, and you get that kind of like result, and then like actually like playing through the eruption and trying to catch as much as you can and drop that loot. Those are kind of like moments where you feel and see kind of like you're in that control. Whereas like the pressure building, like yes, you are kind of like pushing that progress needle, but it feels more like busy work than kind of like, you know, as interesting and exciting. So it's kind of like if we were to design areas that kind of like work in a similar way, that kind of like extra busy work step would be like, maybe we don't need kind of that little moment. If it doesn't add to the fun of it, it's kind of like, it doesn't seem as necessary. I enjoyed designing that, and like the kind of visuals I thought were really neat, and a lot like to dig into, and like maybe there'd be ways to have made that more rewarding and exciting, and kind of add to the experience as opposed to just feel like it's just extra kind of stuff you have to deal with. But it was interesting. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of comment about it, kind of like it taking too long. Like there's also like kind of how long it takes to generate the cheeses you need to do what you want. Your goals can kind of dictate just how long you take to do things, and the tools you've kind of like gotten to do that can also factor in. I know there have been a lot of events that specifically kind of compress the geyser in ways, with being able to kind of generate a lot more of that bland queso so you can get your cheese easier, or just kind of drops overall are increased, or like Big Jack's Shack is specifically one that like really kind of like accelerates that. So the fact that there being so many kind of elements or events that have kind of like amplified things, as well as like adding kind of tools to kind of like make that better, yeah, it kind of indicates that like, oh, that was maybe something that could have been tuned up. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to analyze, and I think that it's always good to kind of look at previous locations and try to understand that, you know, there's always room for improvement on basically all of the creations, and to kind of like understand that so that going forward you can use that knowledge. Yeah, I mean that is another thing about like, I don't think the pressure phase is terrible by any rights. I think people don't find it the most exciting, to be fair, but it does create a little bit of a moment of strategy of like, well, you couldn't kind of like put in a little extra work to generate your wildfire, and use it there, and you're just kind of over it. And that is kind of like certainly a choice. Uh-oh, my tablet is not on the correct screen. Let me just fix that real quick. Sometimes when my computer restarts, for whatever reason, like my monitor is open in a weird way, and the actual drivers that my tablet works on get confused as to what window it's supposed to focus on. Easy fix though. There we go. We're all good now. Okay, so let us take a little quick vote. Who would like to see me work on a Pinocchio character, and who would like to see me work on a Little Bo Peep character? I'll try and kind of work with what you guys are interested in seeing. Obviously, you know, like I think both of these characters, the team is like, yeah, these are great kind of characters that we can imagine doing a lot of like cool designs with. So I think both will probably hit that kind of main stage some way or another. But for today's stream, let's do some sketching, see what we can come up with. We have one for Pinocchio. I figure that we probably don't need to do like a polling kind of website system for, you know, two options. We'll just let you guys kind of, you know, cast your vote there. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna like tabulate this on a piece of paper instead of just trying to guess at it. So, all right. So we got Pinocchio, Pinocchio. Bo Peep. Bo Peep. Boat People? Is that a Bo Peep or I feel like that is a silly way of saying it, but it might be. All right, another 2 Pinocchios. Bo Peep. Oh, okay. Yeah, Bo Peep. Oh boy, this is. All right. I feel like I'm already like there is not a lot of counts to go through, and I've already messed it up. I'm sure. All right, I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Would catching more Pinocchios result in a longer nose? I love it. Beep beep. Where's my long nosers? I'm a long noser. All right. I don't know. It looks like Bo Peep is maybe one ahead. I've been terrible at actually counting. Let's see, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. Bo Peep is ahead. Is ahead by at least one. I'm not sure if Bo People or Boat People is a specific vote for Bo Peep, but if I take it as that way, I'm thinking it's the Bo Peep. Which actually I'm not gonna lie, I was actually kind of wanting to lean that way myself. I don't know. I think they would both be a lot of fun to work on today, but that one I was curious as to what I would create for it, I suppose. So let's go for the little Bo Peepers. So I was kind of skimming through just kind of like what information exists about these characters. There's always like the wiki stuff, but neither of them were like too, just lustrous with information. Sorry, I'm too warm now. I suppose that Little Bo Peep is just kind of a cute little rhyme. So there's not necessarily a whole huge kind of like history beyond like, oh, these chapters were added and kind of like this region liked it this way or whatever. But yeah, so basically got kind of like a shorter character with like the shepherd's crook kind of thing going on, right? And her little flock are lost, so she's kind of like searching for them. And then kind of like what would the outfit be? A lot of the characters that we've been creating have been very kind of like, um, more old school kind of fashion. And I figure kind of a little farmer should have kind of probably a more simple dress or something like that. But I don't want to make it kind of boring, just kind of like, yep, standing around, where my sheep at? Thinking kind of hand. Maybe she's like calling out to them. Yeah, like I'm thinking maybe we want to do something a little more dynamic than just kind of something like that. Could do like she could be like searching in a more kind of like exaggerated way, kind of like arm out, kind of shading from the sun, trying to like look over, kind of like a ledge. I'm wondering if could just kind of have like leaning on the shepherd's crook or something like that. And she's kind of peering over a ledge. I feel like a shepherd wouldn't want to necessarily be wearing like a big dress or anything, right? It's like probably a lot of like tall grass and hills and, you know, not there to be fashionable, I would imagine. It's more kind of following these little critters around and making sure they don't get hurt, pulling them out of ditches and stuff. Megaphone with high-tech powered binoculars. I don't think that would work so well with kind of the rest of the cast. We are going kind of more classic, like a lot of them are like Victorian kind of outfits and stuff. So we're kind of keeping it in that century, I would say. We've done a lot of like cool, fun, futuristic, high-tech stuff. So it's actually kind of nice to have that limitation here. She'll have like a bonnet. Frilly shoulders. Okay, so we could even try something like more dynamic than that. Like what if it's more like an action pose, like she's like ready to fight with her crook or something like that. Just kind of, let's see, how would that look? Let's try like, so let's see, I feel like that arm maybe more down here, and she's kind of like got it kind of coming forward. Like she's gonna try and catch you with the crook or something like that. So it'll be like mad perspective, right? I'll have her kind of leaning over it more. Now, something like this is probably not matching with kind of the other characters so much, so I don't know if that'll be kind of quite right, but kind of fun to explore things like this, just see what it could be like. So yeah, let's see. This shoulder is going to be coming towards us, so a lot of overlapping there. Have the bonnet like covering the eyes, making her like super kind of, you know, just like badass, but like yeah. The wiki also pointed out that like the original kind of tale of her being little was not that she was like a little kid, just kind of like a shorter person. So kind of want to kind of like give her like a good kind of like just sturdy, stout stature, you know? Okay, so kind of like her being in an impractical dress as well. And it maybe being like a bit muddy or something like that, at least for this kind of exploration. Just this kind of like takes no guff from nobody. Mind you, this is technically a tier 1 class character. I guess maybe could be considered tier 2 depending on how you categorize the groups, but yeah, Bo Peep won't be like a rare character necessarily. She could be like the tougher of her group, maybe, if we decide to go with this kind of like I'm gonna fight you pose, which is maybe interesting. Again, like today, I only intend to kind of like build up kind of the sketches to kind of work off of for next week. Although next week I'm going to be doing a bunch of HUD work, so I'm not even sure if I'll be able to kind of work on completing the character. We'll see how that all goes, but I kind of like that. That's kind of fun. Let's see. I like this kind of striking dynamic. So I kind of want the tail to reinforce that somehow, but it's getting a little wide for the panel. Yeah, no sheep will escape. Not on my watch, even though she fell asleep and now she lost them. Whoops. So yeah, this might not kind of match with the cast, so we'll have to consider this as a kind of maybe and run it by the other team members to see if we like kind of this potential direction. But not gonna lie, I think it's actually pretty fun. Give her kind of more like a coverall style dress, right? Like the overalls, I guess. Overall style dress. It's a little more kind of working farmer kind of clothing. Can take a beating, maybe even has pockets. Wouldn't that be grand? Now I'm kind of like wanting her to be like Toph from Avatar: The Last Airbender, just like really tough and just kind of like she knows what she's after and like she'll let you know. Don't get in her way. Toph is like such a good character. She's great. Okay. Yeah, something like that could be fun. Let's see. Just kind of more of a like, where did they go? My poor sheep. That are no, just a bit more. It's a fun pose here, because you get like a really good kind of like silhouette going, and that's obviously pretty important. So that's not terrible. This one's just kind of like, I don't know. Looks like they're just crying. Well, let's try exploring this just a little bit. See what we can do with this. Maybe there is a hidden gem in it. Yeah, I feel like this is the least kind of interesting pose to pick, right? But you know what? What if I did? Oop, I meant to rotate it. Okay. So what if it's more like, hello? Oh, sheep. I know why, but I'm enjoying having this bonnet just like cover over her eyes. I guess it kind of plays into the whole like her losing her flock. So kind of having her kind of calling out to them, right? Ooh. That was an interesting. I haven't been watching the chat as much as I probably should, but there's an interesting suggestion about kind of bending the crook, the staff in the dynamic kind of shot to kind of make it look like it's being swung around. Not a bad idea. Okay. I think to like really make her feel like she's little, just having like this way too big for her crook kind of implies that. All right. Yeah, if there's like a little more of a lean to it, where like she's kind of projecting her voice by like leaning into it, it's actually not a bad design. Kind of think it's a little bit fun now. Can just maybe even skew this. Just kind of doing some quick little transforming. See if that kind of Give her like a big bow too. Okay, so this character feels a little more kind of tier 1 to me, right? Not that it's like a super critical kind of element to these designs. Like if there's just kind of like a great looking design, then I prioritize that over making sure they feel weak enough or whatever, right? Because ultimately, during this phase, the balance is often kind of still being kind of determined. So we don't know just how tough or rare a mouse might be when we're illustrating it. And I think when people look at the characters, they're not necessarily kind of thinking about like, that doesn't look weak enough or anything like that. I think it's more kind of like, ooh, that's a cool looking fun idea for a character, or, you know, just, I like the look of that one, or thanks, I hate it, it's a gross monster, kind of stuff, right? This like should like go way over to the side. And that kind of like gives it a little bit more kind of balance. But like keeping that kind of triangular shape of just like projecting out, right? So that's not so bad. I actually think that's kind of fun. It's more dynamic than it was. Kind of grown on me. This one is neat too, though. I feel like it could just be a pretty piece, right? Nice kind of fabrics and lighting, maybe like kind of a little wind blowing, maybe like a tuft of hair or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, herding insects. That's fun. I like that. Instead of sheep, because it's a mouse. I was reading up on like bugs and stuff, and I learned that there are ants that actually shepherd other bugs. I think it's aphids. They like farm them, like they'll herd them to like where they can eat and keep them safe and like protected and sheltered, and they'll like pick them up and move them around and like, you know, and then they milk them. They milk aphids, which is pretty wild. You know, totally information that's relevant to what we're doing today. But yeah, it's weird. Like I learned that, I was like, that is wild. Nature is crazy. Right. Giving her a lantern for searching, even in the middle of the day. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think the aphids like when kind of like they're fed sweet or certain plant fibers or something like that. They produce like this sweet kind of glandular kind of thing that the ants kind of just take off of them and eat or use for whatever. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, Bo Peep can herd some aphids. Yeah, gotta get me some aphid milk. Mmm. Fill up a thimble of aphid milk, please. I'll bet it's very sweet. Maybe. I have no idea. But yeah. So actually, I think these are all pretty decent. I don't think I'm gonna commit necessarily like to anyone specifically right now, because they're all interesting. Like this one, you know, is a lot. Like I like how dynamic it is, and like I do feel like it can fit the kind of, you know, I can give her kind of like that more old-timey clothing. However, I do worry that, you know, like compared to other mice, it's going to look like a boss or something like that. Like it's way more kind of dynamic than other ones. More like I'm gonna fight you. Um, so depending on kind of like how we could use the character, it might not kind of like fit its role very well. Um, that's fun. Um, so I definitely want to kind of like throw this to the other kind of team members and see what they think, because right now I'm kind of like, I enjoy this. Maybe I can kind of like use this kind of design for kind of like higher tier characters as well. So that'll be worth considering. Um, yeah, I think what we could do is label these so that if we're talking about it in the chat and you're like this one, and I like switch to a different layer, I'm not gonna get confused over what kind of version you were kind of trying to reference. So we can kind of just label this like A, B, C, and that way, you know, if you wanted to kind of talk about a specific one, it'll be easier to kind of know what one you're kind of talking about. So feel free to do that. Yeah, I think A is like interesting and a lot of fun. It definitely needs to be kind of worked through. It is more like antagonizing, kind of like um, I'm ready to fight you. Feels higher tier. B, I think, will be a very cute image, and stylistically, I think would be pretty easy to make fit with the other character, the other roster. It definitely feels kind of like the lowest tier, and this character is pretty low tier. She's kind of like in the kind of, you know, nursery rhyme kind of grouping, which is definitely like Pinocchio's kind of tier is a higher group, if you will. Um, yeah, really. Wow, this is crazy. Another fun fact is that flower peony can't open without ants biting the buds open. That's wild. Hmm. Very interesting. Yeah, nature is crazy. But it's like, yeah, like clearly that's been working for it, right? To have it kind of evolve into those kind of systems. And, you know, that doesn't just happen and like get established like that, where it's just like, that's just how those plants work now. You know, like, I mean, that it does happen, but like, obviously it kind of like has to kind of like go through, you know, a long kind of system of that being how its kind of survival systems work. Like it's obviously worked for the plant for it to keep that attribute, I suppose you could say. The whole selecting for survival idea. You know, if it didn't work, like such, you know, incidents happen all the time, and kind of like mutations of nature and all that. But like, if it doesn't make it better at kind of surviving and thriving, then, you know, it tends to not persist. So it's pretty wild that like something that kind of, you know, like can't flower if an ant doesn't bite off a part of it is like impressively specific, you know. It's pretty cool. Yeah, there's all kinds of like weird bugs and plants that have stuff like that. Zombie parasites and crazy things. This arm feels like it's too long. Yeah, nature is scary and crazy. Way more creative than any of us. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A is more along strong bow keep. Yeah, exactly. C is also lower tier too. Yeah. C and B are kind of feeling more kind of like the tier that the mouse is intended to fit in, whereas A is kind of like might be a mini boss. You know. Yeah, A and B are your favorites. Okay. Hmm. That's true. B could work with the outer hand at the back holding it, and then the other hand kind of doing the searching thing. I think they kind of like it's almost the same thing. It's just this is crossing over, which I thought was maybe a little more kind of unique choice for the pose. But yeah, if it doesn't feel as natural and read as well, that might not be the best. But I'm just kind of thinking of like what I would probably do if I had kind of a staff to lean on. I was trying to peer over a ledge. Seems very dangerous, in fact, the way that she's poised. Because it's like she is actually off balance, right? And the staff is the thing kind of keeping that, and if it like whoop, skipped out over the ledge. Yeah, because she doesn't want to move her feet closer to the cliff. But if she had, she'd actually probably be more stable. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. I kind of like the bonnet here, but then with like a little tuft of hair kind of coming out from under it for this pose specifically, just because I feel like it adds to that kind of like the wind, which kind of like makes this feel more interesting. Where she's like, oh no, did my aphids fly off of the cliff? Uh-oh. I guess in this one, she doesn't have her eyes actually covered from the bonnet. I do want the hand to kind of feel more like it's covering the face, I think. I think I pulled it out just for making the silhouette read even better, but I should be able to have both, I think. Maybe. We need to pull the bonnet back a bit. Yeah, if I have kind of like her hand shielding her from the light so she can kind of like peer out, could have a lot of fun doing some like nice lighting, kind of casting across the face here with the hand kind of thing there, right? Hmm. We have been doing like a little background element, but it's not like foresty grounds or anything like that. These characters, kind of like the environment is going to be kind of this nice kind of fairy forest kind of idea. But what we've been doing for the backgrounds is having this kind of like just kind of old textured kind of paper quality to it, because we want to kind of capture this like storybook kind of feeling where like old illustrated books would almost have this kind of vignette of the illustration, and so to kind of reference that, having kind of like the page itself be vignetted, and so they're kind of like in that story page. But like little kind of things like tufts of grass and stuff totally can be a part of it as well, especially if we're using it kind of like to show the shadow under the mouse or something like that. I wouldn't necessarily kind of like have like this full-on cliff edge or something like that, right? But a little indication of it, I think, can kind of go a long way. So I think it'd be fine to kind of do a little bit of something like that. We'll probably have that kind of like vignette away, right? Like have that kind of fade out. So maybe something like that could work. Yeah, yeah. I agree. This character doesn't feel like she's kind of like more stout, whereas this one is like very obviously and adorably kind of shorter. I like it. Yeah, I think this arm I need to fix like that. Yeah, in terms of kind of like fitting the requirements, I feel like C is maybe kind of getting the most kind of elements where I know that they'll work. Like A is definitely fun, but it also kind of like breaks the kind of groups dynamic a bit. Defies kind of like what I might expect the character design to kind of match, and I'm definitely interested in doing more kind of dynamics, but I think maybe this group isn't the group to do that with. And then B, kind of like, I like the design and kind of like the layout, but she doesn't quite feel like perhaps what our Bo Peep should look like, you know. This one's just kind of fun, especially with the like the hollering and like, you know, maybe yeah, we like put one of the bugs or whatever she's hurting behind her, totally oblivious to where it is, and it's just kind of like what? That certainly adds complication, and then need to kind of like make sure that that's good to go in terms of like what are her sheep. And also, since we have kind of like some bug mice in this kind of in this area, might not work the best. Don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. B for little Bo Peep and A for big Peep. Yeah, you like catch too many of the little one here, and then like this one comes for you. I like it. I want like leather wrapped around the handle of this or something. Yeah, the Rift Bo Peep. Oh, there you go. Smart. Yeah, if we end up doing kind of a Rift version of it, totally. I like it. We could make her feel like she is smaller if we wanted, though. Let's see. Just kind of shrink that down a bit, and then didn't mean to do that. Make the crook like taller. It's not as kind of bad with that. I feel like this would be kind of fun to like have her be all muddy. Here we go. Let's give this a flip as well. We'll see just kind of how off some of these poses feel. You can tune them up. Like here, I'm kind of like, oh, we could have like a stronger silhouette probably overall if we just kind of like tweaked a few of these kind of little angles. And then maybe it'd be like a pretty good character. Move this leg out further. Like really stretch that out. Yeah, yeah. It is not a good like way to be standing over a ledge. I don't think, but she's more distracted trying to find those sheep. Just keeps losing them. Yeah, okay, so that's not bad actually. Let's flip it back again. And if we wanted to make her feel even smaller, maybe just shrink it just a little bit more. Didn't need to hit that button. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. All right. And then because we have like the light kind of going into her eyes, have like nice kind of strong shadow would look good there. You'd have the grass being kind of like lit up bright, and then kind of like some of the grass in the cast shadow, and then like back to the light grass in front of that. That would look neat. Yeah, might still feel too tall to be little. True. Alright, well, let's look at... Yeah, because she seems little. Yeah. L-I-L apostrophe. Yeah, leaning a bit too far. Yep. It's a bad lean. Don't do it. Very unbalanced. That's what you get being a tier 1, though. Yeah, I think her limbs are a bit too long. Try just pulling them in where we can. Like, I'm trying to be conscious of what the silhouette is reading like. It's like this whole bottom portion could maybe shift in a bit, maybe even rotate it a little bit up. It's a little bit more stable if it's like kind of this sloped cliff, right? That might feel a little more natural. And then, yeah, like I think the legs still feel like they're too long. So we can try and just kind of see if... It at least feels a little bit more balanced. I suppose this way it's a little bit less precarious as well. Still not the most stable place to be leaning on a staff. Okay. Maybe just kind of not having such thin limbs as well would help. Very kind of slender feeling, right? All right. Yeah, could straighten her back out a bit too. It's very crooked now, more than I intended, I would say. Let's do that. Agreed. All right. So yeah, I definitely think it's between B and C. I'm still gonna like hang on to the A sketch because I think it's fun, but yeah, I don't imagine that that will fit as well as either of these. So I think that's pretty easy to eliminate at least that option. But yeah, with this, I'm definitely gonna kind of see what you guys prefer, but also probably like see what the rest of the team likes better, because they might have a good reason for kind of like, oh, this one fits better for this reason, or stuff that you might not kind of like be aware of design-wise. Right? Yeah. So okay, she feels a bit smaller now, at least. All right. Yeah, mirror would be. I like this one. This one, it feels more like she's looking for something that she forgotten, that she misplaced. Here, it's kind of like looking out ahead towards the future, right? So I think facing this direction actually makes that story beat a little bit more kind of understood, interestingly enough. I suppose that might be more kind of like for a specific kind of group of people that they see it that way, because like I think from what I've kind of seen about, depending on what way things are facing in a frame, it can kind of like mean one thing or another. That can very much come from like Western comic kind of ideas of like reading left to right kind of thing, right? But I'm not well versed in all that, so I couldn't give you any kind of good perspective on that. But that's kind of like, this feels to me, at least from my perspective, that it is more her searching for something that she lost. And then when she's facing to the right, it feels more like she's kind of like looking over something or into the kind of future prospect. Less looking for something left behind, I guess. I did notice that there's kind of like several different kind of shapes and designs for a shepherd's crook. Um, but a lot of them kind of do have a little bit of this kind of flaring out at the end because, as I understand it, they can be used to kind of like hook around. Let's say if they fell down into a ravine and couldn't get out, they can use them to kind of like hook around the foot and like help pull them out, or like just to kind of steer them around, getting it kind of like looped over their neck and stuff like that. So like some are like super wide, and I feel like those ones would be more for kind of like lassoing them without the rope aspect, but more just kind of like, here you go, around the neck, guide them around. Whereas an arrow one is more like being able to like grab a armpit and pull them out of a ravine or something. And then also able to be employed defensively from predators and such. Protect the flock by smacking wolves or whatever. And also used to kind of like push aside tall grass to look around, stuff like that. And, you know, generally fields are very lumpy, unbalanced kind of places, especially like big grazing field, right? You're not going to have some beautifully landscaped kind of pasture always, so, you know, useful for balance and not twisting ankles and all that jazz. So a lot of good stuff that can be done with those tools. Okay. Also with this one, I feel like facing to the left kind of feels more like, you know, where are you? Kind of, as opposed to kind of like, hear ye, you know? So I think all of them are probably going to work best kind of facing left. Let's see, this one, there's definitely some tweaks to be made with the actual kind of structure of it. Not that I should probably put too much focus on it. I feel like this isn't going to be the direction it goes. But now I'm just kind of curious to see what it could look like. It's like this ear feels off to me, right? I almost need like you know, like verses, and then like the ear kind of like covering over that part, you know, like title card for the fight of the centuries, you know. So yeah, that one probably not what we'll go with, but it was fun to sketch with you all. I like it. Save it for the Rift, I think. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, so this one mirrored, I really do think that is quite a bit stronger than where it started. I think I'll even make her tail stumpier, make it a little cuter. Yeah, I agree. A not mirrored kind of looks a little stronger to me as well. One of the interesting things is when it like genuinely like looks worse and like off, that means there's something going on with kind of like the structure of the drawing that needs to be addressed. Whereas like when it tells a story differently depending on its facing, that's more kind of like just narrative side of things. If it doesn't look better or worse when it's flipped, then that generally means that like yeah, your anatomy and structure is probably in a decent enough spot that nothing kind of like jumps out as feeling bad or broken, right? So it's always like if when you flip it, something like really just kind of looks wrong with it, that's something to kind of like try to understand what might be broken with it. But if it just tells a better story, then it's not in a bad spot. And I think we're at that point with this one where it's kind of like, yeah, these both work, they both look good, but this one just tells more of a story of the character having lost something. So I think that is better to me. So I'm going to say let's make sure that one remains flipped. This one I think as well. Yeah, I think this one as well. Stronger flipped. And so I can actually just do that, and now it's actually facing the way it's supposed to. Because right now I'm flipping the kind of canvas itself, but like if I were to output it, it would actually not be flipped. This flip horizontal button here is a hotkey to just flip my view. Whereas like my navigator, which is showing kind of like the whole image, actually as it would be output, that doesn't flip, right? So we have another half hour before I'm going to take my lunch and end the stream. So we could try another sketch. Or we could kind of like refine these or start to block in color. If you guys are all like B, do B, or C or whatever, then like I think it'd be okay to start to work it up a bit more. A is fun. I don't think we're going to keep that going forward for like, you know, this version. Save it for a Rift. So between B and C, or perhaps, you know, a new kind of another sketch we could explore in half an hour. But yeah, I agree. A normal, not mirrored. Yeah. Of course, the like scribble I did on this has the text mirrored now, so is what it is. But I don't think we would keep the text either way, so it was just for fun. Still C. Okay, got it. Sally is on C. It is more kind of like cutesy and funny. The like the eyes covered with the bonnet. It's pretty fun. This one's a little more kind of like pretty illustration, I guess. Less of a character going on. Keep imagining this one with curly hair, and I think it's because I'm thinking of her having sheep with, you know, they'll have like their curly hair, so I liked tying that together. But right now it's not even kind of visible anywhere. Yeah. B colored. Yeah, so we could kind of whip up some color into B. Like I feel like B feels more storybook to me, more like an illustrated fable, just in terms of kind of like this pose and the composition of it, and like I'm picturing more pastel colors, whereas like this one is more loud and kind of like silly to me, and also, you know, like a kid's storybook more so than like a classic kind of illustrated fairy tales or something like that, right? Like that's kind of the difference between these designs for me. This one feels more like it's kind of like, you know, really old school, you know, storybook for kids, and then this one's like a more modern kind of like, you know, Bo Peep versus the Snot Goblins. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that could be fun. Is like having like a little kind of tuft of hair kind of blowing in the wind, and like I would like maybe just like a little kind of, if it would look clear. Like I think it would need to be rendered for it to read well. But yeah, just kind of like the curly kind of like sheepy hair, I guess, is kind of how I'm picturing it. And the bonnet kind of keeping it all controlled. It's windy out there in the open field. Yeah. Ringtone. All right.
I'm good. How are you? She's doing okay.
I don't know, this, I don't think that this one's lacking in character either. Like, I feel like, because we can kind of like have a good kind of like interesting outfit, kind of displayed well, and it can kind of be a bit like mud covered, and you know, she's got like a pretty expressive pose, and you know, like another thing is this silhouette is decently strong, you know. So I'm thinking, yeah, with the remaining time, we have half an hour, we could just block this in, see if it holds up. We could even block in both. This is pretty quick. But yeah, like this one feels more like a town crier now that I'm thinking of it, whereas she's like quietly looking for the sheep, you know. Yeah, I like this one. I think this one's growing on me more and more. B. So yeah, let's try blocking this and see if that makes it any stronger. But we could do kind of like, yeah, I think with the kind of like the cast of characters, this one will fit right in. Not that I don't think that C would either. Yeah, like I'm thinking more kind of like lighter, kind of softer palette, watercolory kind of quality to it could look quite nice. I think we'll go with kind of more of like a lighter blonde kind of color, even white, to kind of like go with the sheep. Yeah, cartooniness of C is fun. That's true. But yeah, I feel like this is like just on the element of it feeling a little more kind of in universe with fairy tales and that classic illustration. This is kind of more in that universe, and I think that is more the aesthetic that we're interested in for this area, is to kind of like get that more classic feel. But I definitely like that we kind of changed kind of the like just the limb kind of how kind of elongated she had felt before. feeling a little more kind of tiny. Okay. All right, let's go with like kind of a light sky blue, let's say for now, for this dress, even less saturated. And I should probably block these into more layers than I'm doing, but I'm more kind of doing this to get that silhouette and see what it looks like. And once I have them blocked out, then I'll be able to test that really quick and easy. Erase this bit. Yeah, like right now I'm kind of drawing stuff behind a layer, but actually using the layer in front of that. It's not the most convenient way to do that. Same with right there. Like I would normally have kind of like a layer behind and just use that. Just saw the new cheese designs. Looking good. Okay, yeah, so let's get this crook here. Yeah, different color for the apron and trim and stuff. That would be good. I'll do that. Use at least a different layer for that. Cool. All right, so we could do a layer behind for this kind of curly hair, I guess. Let's see if we like that. Probably need to go more white. Yeah, I think I'll lighten up the fur on the mouse overall. very rough kind of. Yeah, exactly. So let's do an apron with kind of, let's see, I don't know, like thinking maybe like a light pastel, kind of purple or pink. Maybe not at all. I'm not sure I like that. I don't think I like that color. Or maybe the kind of main dress color needs to be tweaked. Like if this is kind of, let's see, try like changing the color. Oh, that's actually kind of cute. But I think it could be darker. Probably not super saturated. Yeah, white for the lace would probably be better. Yeah, that's true. Hmm. I don't know. Can't decide. I think, yeah, I think darker will be better for that. Let's tweak the trim to be more kind of white. And we can like leave the apron as like a different color then. And then maybe the apron is more like, maybe too dark. Hmm. Maybe if that's like a lighter color and then the dress is darker. Kind of like the earthier color for some reason. Maybe like, the bonnet itself could be lighter as well. Hello, Roxanne. Hmm. Mm-hmm. How much time is spent on one mouse in total from start to finish? It goes all over the place depending on kind of like the level of kind of detail on the character, and like there's a lot of factors that can come into play. Like a simpler pose can be a lot faster if there's like a lot of little detail elements like an outfit and kind of props and stuff like that. Each of those need to be kind of designed and rendered separately in a way. But usually these days they take more on the grounds of about like 2 days. More kind of like involved characters can certainly take longer, like bosses and such. So it can really depend, but like the shortest is usually 1 day for kind of like simple little characters. Can knock those out in about like 7 hours or less. But then most of the characters in the past while have a lot more kind of going on. We've created them at higher kind of like quality, and so it takes more time. So usually more like 2 days, 2 to 3 days, or but yeah, like some can take up to 4 days maybe. But yeah, it really can kind of vary quite a bit. I don't know. Kind of like that. It's like a very kind of earthy, but still kind of cute and light color, but it'll show like mud on it. And then I think the apron color is just too, not quite what it should be. Like, should the bonnet and the kind of like shoulder tufts be different colors as well? I don't know fashion. Yeah, like if I did. It's a lot going on. I also do think that it would be nice to have a little bit of kind of the grass and earth below. So like that could play into the actual color palette overall. So that's worth kind of having in here for consideration. And I think I want more kind of like yellow and bright sunlight and stuff, so that might be something to help influence the overall colors. The grass could just be more kind of dried and yellowed, and then like where there's shadow cast on it. Like I don't want it to be like super kind of like contrasty and dark on kind of like this environmental stuff, because I don't want that to kind of like draw too much attention away from the character. I don't want it to be distracting. So just kind of like light, soft pastel version of the ground, right? That kind of gives that watercolory feel to it with it blending out, which I think is kind of a nice way to do environmental stuff like that. Right. So what we could do is we could take a quick look at just what happens to the silhouette by making this a normal folder, put a layer above that, clip it, and lock that in. And so here we have kind of like our actual character silhouette. And there's a few things that I think could read well if tuned a bit. And so the first thing would be to kind of like, there's this elbow here. And what I would do is I would kind of the background somehow. I'd maybe have like just a little bit of a gap, if at all possible, right here. If I just move this arm down a bit, I might be able to make that work, hopefully. So then let's pop that silhouette back on. So now there's like that gap and a little more understanding that that's like an arm. The elbow there, that's good. There's just like a bunch of little kind of gaps, a couple places. Just want to fill that in. Yeah, I feel like that isn't a bad silhouette. I think maybe this fringe here could be a little more clear. If I kind of like give it like a little bit of a doily kind of softness to the fabric, as well, like a lot of the time you're going to be looking at the image not actually as the silhouette, and sometimes, you know, if it's a very soft, light material, that doesn't have as strong an impact on that edge. So if it is kind of like a gentle fabric and kind of comes forward a bit, that can help with that read. Let's see if we can just kind of create a more interesting shape language here that reads a little bit better. So that's all soft, billowy materials, so no hard edges. And I want to kind of have the folds around it be a little bit less consistent. And then the actual like rendering of those folds will be, you know, done properly. Okay, it's a little bit maybe hard to tell what's going on with the arms and stuff. I'm not sure if I would change that so much right now. Like, I suppose this inner arm could be kind of like turned in, and you could see the hand kind of down near the bottom instead, leaving that kind of like arm doing this a little more obviously. And you know what, I would even consider maybe before I had the hand kind of like sticking away from the face a bit, and then I brought it in to actually like cover the eyes. I think maybe I'll bring it out again to kind of like have that silhouette read even stronger again. So I do need to select. I just want both of these selected at the same time because Clip Studio lets you do cool things like edit multiple layers at the same time, or transform at least. So I can grab that and I do that and then rotate the wrist so that the hand will like kind of be floating out as a silhouette. And I kind of like it being a little bit exaggerated. Turn off the sketch for a second. And then the bonnet can kind of pull back a bit here. Just kind of make a bit more space. If we have just kind of the shape of the hand kind of going over that, should still convey that it's like the sun is going down a bit more maybe. Getting later in the day. Let's see if that silhouette is stronger. I don't actually think it is. Kind of just looks broken now. The hand is just like, yeah, her dress is very ugly. I agree. Darker blue dress was better, yeah. Okay. Waistband of the apron should be the same color as the apron, with a bow on the back. Such a good point, I agree. Darker blue dress, try that. Yeah, small flower stuck somewhere would be nice. Yeah, a little daisy. I like that. Apron, light pastel pinkish. Let's try that. So, yeah, I don't think that hand is stronger. So I think I'm going to undo. Maybe it's more about just kind of having the thumb kind of peeking out in a clear way. So that's where I moved it. Now she's just kind of like, oh, what have I done? So if the thumb is floating and there's like a little gap there, I think that Yeah, so that I see more as like kind of doing that, right? Whereas when it was kind of floating out, it just kind of didn't quite work. Not really. Plus that wrist just felt a little too extreme. Okay, so I think that's stronger. All right, so dress color, not that. Doing the suggestion of the apron and ribbon part. Definitely agree that those should be the same color. And then having a bow. Well, with the whole bow peep in the name. Lighter pink. Okay, we are basically out of time, but I'm gonna add this detail before we go. Yeah, like a big ribbon, big bow to go with bow peep. Dirt. I don't even know why I didn't think of that before. It's like all the little illustrated books had like sheep with bows and such. So yeah, definitely. All right, yeah, blue dress. Puke green. Not puke green. Okay, fine. Yeah, let's get a nicer color. I did say originally like a sky blue would be nice. So if we go with kind of like the more saturated dress and then the lighter, more pastel apron, I think that will look nice. Yeah, I think maybe something closer to that, and then the actual apron and bow can go lighter. Yeah, much better. The muddiness on the bottom of the blue also. Yeah, this is definitely better. I'm not sure what color the bonnet should be. Maybe it's different altogether. We'll see. Don't think I need to decide that right now. Something a little more like that, maybe like just a hint of yellow trim on stuff or something could be nice. I think as well. Kinda, hello? Oh, right, I had my eraser going, that's why. Little bits of trim down there. And then, yeah, might as well just do a clipping mask above for just kind of a little bit of muddiness. Nothing crazy though. Just not afraid to get messy. looking for her little sheeps. There we go. All right, so we managed to kind of come up with a couple of pretty good sketches. Definitely some great input from you all, giving me some good stuff to work with. I think we're pretty confident about this character design here. I just feel like it does feel classic and it fits in that kind of genre. Bonnet, not working for me yet. Definitely going to be tweaking plenty of elements about this, but I think we got a good kind of like grounding for the design. So what I'm going to do is actually save this, because that would be good to have done at any point. So let me do that. Nice. Okay. Saved, and we can wrap up with a little time lapse. So I'll turn the sketch layer on in front here and see the character a little easier. Not bad, not bad. All right, and let's do a little export the time lapse, and I'm gonna get the Larry link going. Let me grab that. Nice. Copy link and pop that into the chat. All right, well, that's gonna be the stream today. But thank you very much for joining and partaking, helping me come up with some fun ideas and characters. Glad you were a part of it, and hopefully the dress won't be super ugly by the end. We'll see. But yeah. Kind of fun rewatching all this, of course. Yeah, so there's plenty more characters to be done. Obviously, this is just the start of this character. See, like I like what's going on with that. The bonnet kind of fluttering forward. I might try and recapture that a bit better. But yeah, plenty of characters. We're going to be doing a lot more streams like this one and other ones where I kind of like have a more completed character that I render. I'm going to try and mix it up where I do a little bit of kind of each part of the process. Because the past few mice that I were working on were basically figured out. You know, I'd kind of like come up with the design and it was mostly kind of like blocked in, and then it was just kind of final rendering. I feel like I want to get, you know, you guys more involved in helping to design them as well, because you know there's a lot more that can easily be tweaked during the sketch phase. So nice to do that. But it, you know, I also like to kind of do rendering live as well. So yeah, mix it up. There's going to be a lot of characters to work on still, so plenty of streams to come. Oh yeah, not a pretty color. Not at all. That is very pukey. Yep. Just like this looks like a garbage fabric for running around chasing animals in fields. Yeah, of course. I always love your guys' input. It's important to me to kind of like have it be, you know, something you guys are involved in and helping to kind of like add your little bits to it. You know, for like doing traps and trap skins and all kinds of stuff. Like I would sometimes put like little kind of nods to people that were in the chat, just like little kind of initials and stuff, and you know maybe we can kind of do a little bit of that with these characters too, and it just kind of adds that permanence of you were here. But at least when it comes to kind of like during sketching, you know, a lot of like I would not have come up with the same designs. So you know, being able to work together to create it is a lot of fun. Also, I like the arch in the back, but it is definitely more of kind of like an elongated character. I definitely think that that pose did look good, but not as a little Bo Peep, long Bo Peep. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I mean that's often how it goes. Is at least for me, kind of don't start with kind of like a sketch that really works for me. Like I know that there's some potential for it, so I just kind of keep working it. This one came together pretty well though. I knew there was something with this drawing that I liked, and then it seems like we managed to kind of capture the right stuff for it. So I'm pretty pleased. But yeah, I shall see you all probably in 2 weeks. There's a good chance it'll be Dave next week, but if not, we'll do more art. But either way, we're gonna have more art for you in due time. So I'll see you next time. Make sure to grab that layer link, share it around, and I hope you all have a good and safe weekend. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I shall see you all next time. And thanks for hanging out. Always nice to have company. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Catch you later, everybody. Bye.